Welcome back, YouTubers. This is Chelsea and Joe in another episode of Over and Out. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little different, but it is very near and dear to our heart. We're going to be talking about the possible integration of Marine Corps male and female recruits training together. Now, Marines have been training together, female Marines and male Marines have been training together ever since 1918, when the first female Marine of
O&Oe Johnson.
So one of the questions I would like to ask Chelsea right now is, do you think the possible integration of males and females is something that can be done without any hesitation, any problems, or anything like that? Or do you think that it's going to be setting the Marine Corps back?
Ooh, setting the Marine Corps back. No. But every integration has its growing pains, right? Like, when there was racial integration previous to this, I'm sure there was that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, you know? And I feel like that's a lot of what's being argued against this integration right now, are a lot of the same things. Even some of the physical ones, there was certain speculation as to racial differences biologically, you know, and obviously there are gender differences, but there are very few things that the human body can't be conditioned to be able to handle. It's a very efficient piece of machinery, the human body is, and it even fixes itself. So there's that.
Right. No, there's no reason that a female can't do the same things that a male can do. That's something that's already been studied. We already know that. But being that we're trying to integrate males and females into one training environment, especially something so, it's at the beginning of the Marine Corps career. Do you think that's going to take a toll on males and females?
Okay, so that's a multifaceted question for me. There's two different answers. Okay, so do I believe that integration should occur at the very beginning of one's Marine Corps career? Yes, absolutely. However, the individuals that are joining the Marine Corps are generally teenagers. They're 17, 18, 19.
Young-minded in a certain, like, one-lane type of highway.
Yeah, for sure. They're from all different walks of life, obviously. So turning these civilians into United States Marines is a task in and of itself enough. But there's so many psychological, deep-seated indoctrination that is yet to be uncovered, or already has been actually, and is probably part of the reason why we're taking this long to address it anyway, because sexism has been here for thousands of years, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Not in my lifetime anyway. I will not see a non-gender biased society.
Right.
There's just no way. But for, like, okay, so societies used to be matriarchal and matrilineal, and now they're not. And that is a much more deeply seated mentality than anything that Marine Corps boot camp can really contest. Males and females are just raised differently as it stands, and a lot of times that conditioning that is done throughout childhood is through the entirety of one's lifespan continuing on. So right now there's a whole slew of things that are supposed to already be addressed in 3 months' time, and I think that right now we are just not ready for it. That's psychologically and logistically. It's just not the time for this. There's other countries, there's like a dozen other countries right now that are successfully doing these things, but their entire mentality surrounding the issue is different as well. So I think that the system is broken, and integrating boot camp is not going to be what fixes it. Also, there's a lot of benefits to what's happening right now. The fact that women are now being allowed in these combat roles, because that's another change that's happening, is combat MOSs, military occupational specialties, are being opened up to women, and the units therein. So women who have successfully completed all their basic training are now being able to be a part of these traditionally all male units, and that's a great thing because there's female analysts out there that are, excuse my language, but just badass, and that's all there is to it. They're amazing at what they do, and I would take that Marine over a male Marine any day, no matter how physically fit that guy is, because that female Marine knows the job better.
Now, there was a study done in integrating male and female Marines.
And that's the reason why the Marine Corps is the only branch in the United States military services right now that aren't integrated, because there was an internal study conducted, an internal evaluation rather conducted, 2 experimental units for infantry, basically tasks. Infantry guided tasks were put side by side, and the integrated infantry unit was outperformed by the segregated one. So that was sent up to the Secretary of the Navy, and then it was basically requested that we don't do an integration, whereas the rest of the military already had, or was in the process of, or whatever. And that was recently basically disregarded, and it comes back down that now this proposed integration.
Now, is that because of physical fitness standards, being that some of the female Marines have lower standards than the male Marines, or their physical fitness requirements are different? Or why is that? Why do you feel that there was such a difference in segregated and integrated?
Okay, so simple answer, I believe it's a background training one and a psychological one.
Psychological, okay.
Primarily psychological, even, because there's secondary and tertiary effects to deeply seated psychological tendencies, or lack thereof, and conditioning, rather. So for thousands of years, we as a society, even though previously matriarchal, have been conditioned a certain way and indoctrinated a certain way, and this stems back to way before Marine Corps boot camp, and that's like at birth. At birth, you're assigned a sex. Sex and gender are different. You're assigned a sex at birth, and that has to do with your reproductive organs. Granted, there are some that have more
different topic.
Yeah. Okay. So, and at that point, obviously, there are certain biological differences. Like one that gets brought up a lot is women's hips are wider set, obviously for child rearing, and so we carry weight differently. Granted, if we were to carry the weight on the front, vice the back, we would, from my limited scope, we would likely be able to outperform the males, from what I've seen. And that probably, I'm just saying what I've seen and have done, and that probably has a lot to do with the fact that we are made for rearing children. I mean, that makes sense to me, you know what I mean? But the training isn't built like that right now. Right now you carry your pack on your back. You know what I mean? Like little differences like that, logistic differences. Like there's certain field environments where you have to piss in a tube. I can't do that. I could use a funnel. Like that's a possibility for sure. But that's in the military. And what I was saying before is before that, you're just raised differently. You know what I mean? In our society, vice others, there's like a dozen other countries that do have successful integrated programs right now. But their entire mentality surrounding men and women is completely different from that of the American one.
Okay. Well, with that being said, the Marine Corps is considered a very elite group of individuals. That's why we carry the name the few and the proud. Now, if it's not broken, then why would we fix it?
That sounds a lot like something that was probably asked during the racial integration, I would think.
Okay.
If it's not broke, why fix it? And I'm sure there was a permanent change to the dynamic of the all-white male units that existed prior to the racial integration, and one of two things happened. They either adapted or they got over it and went back to normal. Those are the only two possible outcomes because they're still operating in the same way that they were previously. So either that can happen or there will be a permanent change, either to the benefit or detriment of the institution itself. And that remains yet to be seen, but
all right, so
adapt and overcome is something that's ingrained in us.
Adapt and overcome, right, you're right. But being that it is a time of war, should the Marine Corps really try this new integration right at this moment, especially with a bunch of teenagers? Like, is that something that should be implemented right now?
So I would like to be able to say, I mean, we've done it before. We've done the trial and error during a time of war before. That's generally the best time to figure some stuff out, like on the job. Generally speaking, you're not gonna know something as well as you know it when you actually do it. I can tell you all day how to change a tire, but until you've actually done it, you're not gonna have the same type of grasp on the situation. Also, though, you have to address, like, common sense must prevail at some point, and I mean, are you gonna really perform a social experiment during a shootout? Probably not the best time.
Alright, this is a topic that's going to be going on, and we're most likely going to have another series, another episode in regards to this actual topic, but put your comments below, definitely some insight. I know we have a lot of Marine Corps friends, family, veterans. We definitely want to hear your input about it, because this is something that, this is going to be big. This is not just going to be this little insignificant thing, a hiccup. This could alter the Marine Corps permanently if it's done incorrectly.
It will alter the Marine Corps permanently, whether it's to the benefit of this institution in this country or to the detriment is yet to be told.
Again,
This is why he does most of the talking, because I ramble and I get sidetracked.
but I love when you talk.
Whatever. Anyway.
You can never shut her up. I'm just joking. I'm going to pay for that later. Anyway, this is another episode of Over and Out. This is Chelsea and Joe signing out.
And three short months. As long as it had seemed. I finally had earned. The title of Marine.